Hey guys, this is Slaughter. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. So, The Mandalorian is certainly not the first piece of Star Wars media to focus on the core-centric preferences of the ruling governments of the day within the galaxy, but it really has been playing up just how much the Outer Rim is a complete wasteland compared to much of the rest of the galaxy, or at least a Wild West. There are of course pockets of civilization across the galaxy, but the New Republic's presence remains dedicated towards the core and quickly starts to drop off the further you get away from those key planets. But why is that? Why has Star Wars always portrayed the Outer Rim as such a, well, hole? There are a bunch of answers to this question, and we've sort of arrived at one of the most basic and obvious ones already. The Outer Rim is really far away from Coruscant, Chandrila, or the other massive centers of civilization which have been the capitals of the Republic, the Empire, or whatever else. So part of it is just distance. Authority atrophies over distance. The Republic, for example, had a lot of its resources centered in the core, so it'd be a lot less likely that you're sending out judicial officers or whoever else to, the far corners of your Republic or your Empire. That's only the most simple answer. If we dive into even that point a little more in depth, we can see that this is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because planets on the Outer Rim are so far from the core, they're naturally home to crime, which would often then go unchecked, and that makes those planets a lot less inviting, a lot less economically profitable, and generally less important. So when you've got these crappy planets, you don't have the Republic or the current Empire of the day looking to put a whole lot of resources into bringing them under control, if they ever were. For example, many planets in the Outer Rim would not have willingly joined the Republic. The Empire, although they campaigned against separatists in the Outer Rim for some time after the Clone Wars, they too never fully exerted effort to bring it under control. But why is that? Why is the Outer Rim so far from galactic civilization? Well, that has to do with what we've talked about on this channel before. Modern hyperspace aliens and humans can track their lineage to ancient factions within a few worlds within the core, including Duros, Coruscant, and more. So it's natural that as faster than light travel developed, that the closest areas of space were colonized first and thus had the most time to become important and well established. The further you move from the center of the galaxy as well, the less dense hyperspace lanes become. What do I mean? Well, as we also talked about the other day, and as was mentioned in The Mandalorian, there are 5 primary super hyperspace lanes in the galaxy: the Hydean Way, the Corellian Trade Spine, the Rimma Trade Route, the Corellian Run, and the Perlemian. Most of these terminate, or in the case of some of the longer ones like the Hydean, bisect the core. Because the core is comparatively much smaller than the Outer Rim, that means that you're never too far away from a major hyperspace lane. On the other hand, if you look at a, say, have-not planet in the Outer Rim, you're some distance from these major highways, and we've talked about how this impacts a planet's development in a couple of past episodes over here on Eckhart's Ladder. Basically, as with real-life rivers and oceans, the most important trade sprouts up beside hyperlanes because they offer the most commerce, and naturally that means that planets that are away from this frontier will see the opposite effect. So that's why we see a lot of core-centric development. We see development along hyperspace lanes, which naturally leaves the Outer Rim much to a disadvantage. There's lots of space where you're basically not near anything, which is just what Luke says in episode 4. The colonization of the Outer Rim was also much more recent than the core, or even some of the expansion regions, which took place perhaps tens of thousands of years ago. Much of the Outer Rim was only settled in Star Wars Legends at least 3,000 to 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, so that's relatively recent in a galactic scale. What's more, exploration and colonization of the Outer Rim was hampered by hostile forces. Most notably, we have the Hutts, which up until and past the point of the Empire maintained a very strong force in the Outer Rim, entire territories dedicated to the Hutts, who then freely exerted themselves not only in their own territory but in nearby space. Here's a nice quote from the Essential Atlas, which I think sums up a lot of what I've just discussed. In a reversal of the galaxy's usual pattern, the pace of Outer Rim exploration was slow lowest within the slice, where the Hutts had actual or de facto domination over many outlying worlds. The most notable trade route of the Outer Rim is the Trialus trade route, which begins at Centaures on the Perlemian in the Mid-Rim and dips rimward of Hutt space, connecting a number of motley worlds. The Trialus spans more than 75,000 light years, but travel times along it are far slower than on better established routes, and it is plagued by pirates, slavers, and worse. The Essential Atlas also goes on to state that the Republic not only had difficulty consolidating their own power and authority in the Outer Rim, but they also lost their power through several wars, with the Sith, especially in about 1000 BBY, really preying on Outer Rim insecurities and hatred towards the core to help fuel their army of soldiers, which is something we see really clearly in the Darth Bane trilogy. After that, the Ruusan reformations essentially disbanded Public's military. We've discussed this on the channel many times as well. Thus, local defense was left largely to individual planets and systems, something that core worlds like Coruscant or Corellia could easily afford, but left many Outer Rim planets struggling against pirates, the Hutts, criminals, and whatever else. What do we have next? Well, the Clone Wars, which again saw the CIS keep a lot of their forces in the Outer Rim, with many planets again ravaged by war and never getting the chance to develop properly in peace or prosperity. As we talked about a little bit earlier, the Empire then went and tried to pacify the Outer Rim with some success, but they also turned to planets and fully exploited them, which we also saw in The Mandalorian, presumably under the command of Grand Admiral Thrawn. In Legends, the New Republic never really was able to consolidate control. Some planets willingly joined the New Republic, as they did for the Republic as well, but the New Republic also struggled with the fact that they were perhaps a government more under siege than any other in history, not only literally by the Yuuzhan Vong, but also by Imperial splinter groups, which took a hold in the Outer Rim and more. In Star Wars canon, we know less about what's going on in the Outer Rim, but we can presume that things are pretty much the same. The New Republic has very limited resources. It's focused largely on planets which join voluntarily, while the most powerful and organized factions in the Outer Rim that are actually exerting real power are typically criminals or factions like the Hutts. So yeah, the Outer Rim is a mess because it was never really a priority for the Republic, which did expand rimward, but very, very conservatively, and which always saw the Rim really as an area of space which would serve the rest of the galaxy. A lot of people in the Outer Rim rightly felt like they were simply tools to be exploited by the much more prosperous inner planets, and in many cases I can't say I blame them. Nonetheless, many factions did attempt to wrest control of the Outer Rim, and that had the effect of destabilizing the region. Not only was no central government able to hold the Outer Rim against crime lords and whatever else, but we also saw many wars tear apart systems and loosen the authority of individual planets, so that by the time of The Mandalorian, well, we get the wild Outer Rim, I suppose. But guys, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, a little different than normal, kind of just chatting about something that I think is really interesting. But guys, that's all for today. I hope you had a good one. Until next time, be safe and may the Force be with you.